Happy Tree Friends is one of those franchises that many people have seen clips of, often due to a friend showing it to them or finding it randomly on the internet. Many would assume that there's little depth to the franchise, and the surface level is all what Happy Tree Friends is. Well, I want to show that there is more to this series than meets the eye. So, I made an iceberg, with topics towards the top that many people know about, to ones towards the bottom that are very obscure and interesting, along with a whole bunch of different theories. For those who are new to the channel, welcome, and this video will teach you an awful lot about the franchise. And for those who've been around for a while, I'm almost certain that there are going to be some things that you aren't aware of, especially towards the end. So anyway, let's start at the tip of the iceberg. Success in the 2000s. During the 2000s, Happy Tree Friends became a massive, unexpected success. Episodes could be seen at film festivals, and even started appearing on TV networks, like America's G4 and the Australian SBS network. There was also episodes/animations separate to the main series, and even one-off completely unique episodes, also known as the irregular episodes. There was many DVDs released. There was merchandise, games, and its popularity led to it having its own TV series. MondoMedia announced that Happy Tree Friends was the most watched web series in October of 2009 and almost got 20 million views. They even said that they beat up Fred.
Hey, it's Fred! I just peed inside the pool! Why did I do that? Oh my god, there's a shark!
Main characters. There are 22 main characters in the franchise. There was originally 20, but in 2010, Lammy and Mr. Pickles was added and made the total 22. Each of the characters have their own unique personality and charm, like Lumpy being dumb, Flaky acting nervous, Nutty obsessing over anything sweet, to Flippy getting flashbacks. MondoMedia. MondoMedia is an American company that produces animated entertainment that are targeted at teens and adults. The CEO is John Evershed, and some of the shows that MondoMedia has released include Dick Figures, Deep Space 69, Daddy and the Big Boy, and of course the most successful, Happy Tree Friends. The Internet and TV series. The Internet series and the TV series are the main episodes of the franchise. There are currently 5 seasons of the Internet series. Including the intros and outros, the episodes are normally between about a minute and a half to about 4 minutes long. The TV series came out in 2006. It has 39 episodes that were in groups of 3, making 13 parts, that were released under the names of One Foot in the Grave, Lesser of Two Evils, The Third Degree, and up to Friday the 13th, which each of the episodes being 7 minutes long. The Smoochies. The Smoochies are about one of the characters being in the middle of the screen, and they will do idle animations like giggling and waving, until you select one of the 3 options, like Corn for Pop and Sprinkle for Petunia, which always leads to the character's demise. But most of you probably know about these due to a lot of the animation being available on YouTube. Tier 2. Above the Surface. Whistle. Whistle is a dog that appears in the TV series episode Doggin' It. The dog grins and becomes very aggressive whenever he hears a whistle sound. Towards the end of the episode, there's more whistles that look just like him, and even have the same personality. Many have compared him to Flippy, due to Flippy doing a similar thing. Some people have speculated that he may have been owned by Flippy at some point. It's possible, but it means that he must have owned the whistles at the end too. So I think it's unlikely. And for anyone who's curious, here's a whole bunch of whistle lookalikes. Fun fact, the vocals of the dog was taken from Ken Pontiac's dog, which is also called Whistle. Love Bites. The Love Bites are very short episodes that are Valentine themed, with two characters being in love, which always included either Giggles or Petunia. But the episodes would always end in the typical Happy Tree Friends way. Flick P. Flippy's evil side originally never had an actual name. He was simply called in the commentaries Evil Flippy, Bad Flippy, or just Flippy. It was only till the episode Operation Tiger Bomb where his evil side was given a name. Giggles is not a bear. Many people assume that Giggles is a bear. Yeah, she does look a lot like a bear, due to the ears and the lack of a big tail that Nutty and Petunia do have. Heck, I was originally not sure what she was myself, especially when she had that head marking that bears don't really have. But she has that head marking because she's a chipmunk. Truffles. Truffles is a character who's seen hiding in many episodes. In 2010 was an event called Vote or Die, where fans could vote for which character to be added to the show. Either Lammy and Mr. Pickles, or Truffles. Lammy and Mr. Pickles ended up winning, and became main characters. Despite Truffles losing though, he ended up being a cameo character, often hiding in many episodes, and he even has more appearances than his rivals. Head markings. During season 1 and 2, Nutty and Giggles have a triangular shaped marking on the front of their heads, with Giggles intentionally having it completely missing in her first episode, not counting the intros of course. Petunia has an arrow shaped marking on the front, but unlike for Nutty and Giggles, the creators / developers clearly wanted her to have a head marking on the back of her head too, but they could not decide how it should look. When the TV series came out, all three were given a head marking on the back with a unified look. The Ants. If you have seen any of the Ant episodes, you would quickly realise why the ants are so infamous. Because after Sniffles tries to eat / harm any of the family, they make him go through incredible suffering and pain, before they make sure that he's never an issue again. There was one ant that was eaten by Sniffles without any punishment, in Blast from the Past. However, it was one of their ancestors. Interestingly, the family had a picture of what is assumed to be the father, wearing a beret and holding a flag. So it's possible that the ants are so violent due to Sniffles eating him, or some other character killing him. Buddhist Monkey. Buddhist Monkey stars in 3 episodes that are separate to the main series. The episodes being Enter the Garden, Books of Fury, and 3 Courses of Death. He's a calm monkey until ninjas anger him, or if he's attacked, which always leads to him punishing them. He was trained by his sensei, who taught him how to make fire with his hands, and likely his fighting skills too. Buddhist Monkey seems to just be a fictional character that's in the Happy Tree Friends world. However, at one point in development, he was supposed to be a main character, but he was cut. Love relationships. Giggles and Petunia have shown attraction or have been in love with different characters. Giggles has shown attraction to Russell, Mole, Flippy and Cuddles. Petunia has shown attraction to Handy, and they have both been attracted to Lumpy, Mime and Crow Marmot. But in 2023, Giggles has shown attraction to Disco Bear, and possibly one time in the past, but that's kind of up for debate. Okay, it's time to talk about the allegation of Giggles cheating on Cuddles. There is no episode that blatantly shows that Giggles is cheating. In fact, Cuddles is even happy to see Giggles kissing Lumpy in You're Cracking Me Up. But it's funny that no one says the same thing about Petunia. Plus, many times throughout the whole franchise, the homes of the characters change, their jobs change, them acting or being very different compared to other episodes, and even the planet changes many times. The characters are sometimes close friends, while other times they seem to barely know each other. In Giggles' case, she often seems to be just close friends with Cuddles, and many times she's hanging out with other characters instead of him. So in conclusion, I don't see any strong evidence, and I think I can confidently say that she's completely innocent. The Cursed Idol. The Cursed Idol is a statue that appeared in many episodes, similar to Truffles, but way before he was created. It even had a few starring episodes where it causes death and injuries not long after being in close contact with the characters. It can create boulders, make monkeys fall out the sky, and create cracks that can chase its victims. Some people think that the idol causes a lot of the unfortunate death throughout the whole franchise. At first it seems to be quite likely, because multiple times we see the idol near a character who eventually ends up dying, or it's around at the time that it's happening. But here's the issue with that theory. It doesn't appear in most episodes. If it does cause a lot of the deaths, you would think that would be seen in most of them. So, besides the 3 starring episodes, it seems to just be something for the eagle-eyed viewers. A bit like Where's Wally? DVDs. With any show or movie that becomes a massive success, there will of course be DVDs made. The main DVD releases are First Blood, Second Servants, Third Strike, the Overkill box set, the 4 TV series DVDs, and Complete Disaster. But there was some others, like Winter Break and the Blood Samples. Apart from the episodes, a lot of the DVDs also include the commentaries, smoochies, Kringles, and additional stuff. Some that I will say about later in the iceberg. Additionally, we did get a VHS release in the UK, probably because we were using VCRs for longer than the Americans. Like myself, I was still using them to around 2012. Because if you have a movie on VHS, is it really that necessary to get it on DVD when you can just buy a different movie? The characters speak in English. In the show, despite what a lot of people will tell you online, The characters don't actually speak English. They speak gibberish. But a lot of what they say does sound like English. Here's some examples.
Bye.
However, there is an exception.
Yo, 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 what's going on?
Me? Just hanging around.
Tier 3. Below the surface. The Kringles. The Kringles are similar to the Love Bites. They are Christmas themed episodes where the characters are doing things related to that time of year, like cooking a turkey, throwing snowballs, and decorating a tree. In Kringle caroling, Lumpy, Cuddles, Giggles, and Toothy are at your door, and they're singing Silent Night. And this short animation has some other variations, where they are singing other songs, like Deck the Halls, We Wish You a Merry Christmas, and 12 Days of Christmas, to mention a few. Spin for Knowing Ya. Spin for Knowing Ya is the first episode of Happy Tree Friends, and the first of season 1. Lumpy is spinning a merry-go-round, with Cuddles, Giggles and Toothy on it, which leads to them flying off. You may have noticed that Giggles is missing her head marking, and Toothy has 2 hairs on his head, but for the next time they appear, this changes. This episode would eventually get remade as a scene in the TV series episode Blast from the Past, which was made to expand on the episode and to explain why there's a plane. Banjo Frenzy. Before the creation of Spin for Knowing Ya was the pilot called Banjo Frenzy that would eventually become available to the public. The art style is a bit different, and it includes early versions of the 4 characters that would end up in Spin for Knowing Ya. Lumpy is a dinosaur instead of a moose, but Giggles seems to be a squirrel instead of a chipmunk, due to her tail looking similar to what Nutty would end up having. Lumpy looks and sounds like how you would expect him to, but has a similar personality to Flippy, which is shown after the characters laugh at him after his string breaks. The pilot would end up being referenced in season 3's Wrath of Khan, where Cub is wearing a dinosaur Lumpy mask. Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy is an American rock band that started in the early 2000s, and it's still going today. The group consists of Patrick Stump, Pete Wentz, Joe Choman, and Andy Hurley. They have released many music videos, like Centuries, I Don't Care, Sugar We're Going Down, and their Happy Tree Friends music video called The Carpal Tunnel of Love, where the plot is mainly about Cuddles trying to impress Giggles. But like a typical episode, things start to go downhill. And another thing about the video is that we can see the band members as beds in the diner. Cuddles costume. There was some official costume for us fans to buy, but I don't think they look very good. I really don't. What are these? Just look at these bloody things. Like, Jesus. But there was a Cuddles costume that doesn't look awful, and it actually looks pretty good. And it resembles some of his plushies. It was simply just made to promote the show, like at Comic-Con 2006, and it can be seen in some of the promotional videos for Slap Happy, where we can see him trying to get on a bus, being hit by random people, and spending time with a friend. The Cuddles can be seen hanging out with a girl in another music video. Yeah, there was a second one, called Unlucky by Kirby Crackle. And I actually quite like the song. I think it's actually pretty good. Pop's wife. After seeing enough of Pop and Cub, something that comes to mind for a lot of people is, why do we never see Pop's wife? Unfortunately, it's probably not that much of a surprise for a lot of people that it's been confirmed that she's dead and buried. And it's highly likely that the grave that Pop and Cub are mourning over in Can't Stop Coffin belongs to his wife. There is very little known about her, but Pop does seem to value a vase in Read 'em and Weep, so it may have been hers. Plus, there's a flower box in the Vicious Cycle, which may have also been hers. So it seems likely that she loved flowers and hearts, a bit like with Giggles and Petunia. In an irregular episode called Cub John Z, which is a stop motion episode, Pop turns Cub into what I assume is a cyborg and not just a robot, due to the fact that he previously had his brain and the way that they look at each other. Cub would end up seeing a monster, and instead of attacking it, Cub jumps into its arms. The monster proceeds to use a roof as a bottle and attempts to feed him, just like how a mother would. Plus, at the end, the monster even makes cookies. So, this monster is the closest thing we've seen to being a mother figure to Cub. The character's ages. If you search on a search engine like Google for the ages of the characters, you will see results like Flippy being something like 26 and Petunia being 15. These are simply what some fans think their ages are, because none of the characters have an actual age. That's why in some episodes, characters like Cuddles, Giggles and Toothy, for example, are clearly acting like children, and a lot of the characters are even called kids in the early commentaries. But in many other episodes, they are certainly adults, because they often have jobs, having their own homes, driving, and just simply acting like adults do in general. And as further proof, Ken Navarro also said this: expanded personalities. Due to the TV series episodes being much longer, the creators / developers wanted to expand on the personalities of the characters. Some characters got little things, like Cuddles liking rock music and Mom being poor, but some got bigger expansions. In Every Little Bit Hurts, Giggles is an environmentalist, and she is seen trying to stop Lumpy from damaging the environment, like stopping him from dumping in the lake, along with killing the fish with dynamite, and trying to prevent him from cutting down trees. Disco Bear was shown to have some insecurities, like him hating being fat in Hip So Fatso, and him losing a lot of his hair in Easy Comb Easy Go. But one of the most notable is Petunia. Petunia wears an air freshener to keep her smile nice, and her collectible card says that she takes 5 showers a day. But for the TV series it was expanded upon, and she was given obsessive compulsive disorder, also known as OCD. In the episodes Home is Where the Hurt Is and Winging It, she's seen cleaning or just trying to keep herself clean. But the more notable episode is in her starring episode Wishy Washy, where she's seen freaking out over one of her lotion bottles being slightly turned unlike the other ones, and even over dirt on her mirror. But the most significant thing in this episode is about her blocking the toilet, which leads to Lumpy coming over to fix it. Towards the end, she gets all dirty and has no clean water to clean herself, so she looks for anything to do the job, which leads to the point of her going completely crazy and using the potato peeler to remove the dirty water, which unfortunately leads to her bleeding out. The Happy Tree Friends movie. So, by what I know, a Happy Tree Friends movie was supposed to release around the same time as two other movies by MondoMedia. Deep Space 69, the movie, and a sequel to the Dick Figures movie. However, they never actually got released. In 2014, new episodes ceased, and fans started to speculate if something like a movie is in production. Then, in 2015, Ken Pontac and Warren Graff were talking about the Kapow episodes, and led to them saying that there being no new episodes planned, and that Mondo is working on a movie. But the following year was the release of the Still Alive digital bundle, which includes 5 episodes and a thank you animation called Blood Donor that would eventually become available for free to watch on YouTube. Unfortunately though, this means that the movie must have been put on hold or cancelled. Ken Navarro eventually said that the sales of the Still Alive bundle were okay, but fell below what was expected. The movie has had, to my awareness, no updates, and it's unknown if Mondo still wants to make it or not. The 2023 return. Due to the underperformance of the Still Alive bundle from 2016, news for the franchise not surprisingly went quiet, until April of 2023, when Mondo strangely released a YouTube short clip from Pop's Barbecue Smoochie, causing some of the community to wonder if this is a sign for the future. At the end of May, Mondo had a partnership with Vivi to have what are basically NFTs.
It's okay.
Luckily in July, Mondo put Happy Tree Friends in their community section, making us speculate what this means. Over time, Mondo gave us more teasers, and announced that on the 27th of September will be the new Happy Tree Friends DLC for the Crap Pet Show, and a new episode, which Ken Navarro revealed the name of, that being Too Much Screen Time. The DLC has Lumpy as the host, and 9 new skins. However, late in the year, we did also get skin for Flippy, and for his evil side. In 2024, Mondo started YouTube memberships, and that there are going to be more episodes coming, and additional content for those who become a member. But they also said that the episode would eventually become available for free. Later in the year was another crossover with Dumb Ways to Die, and instead of it being a game this time, we got an episode called Happy Tree Friends. The games. There was many Happy Tree Friends games, but honestly, a lot of them are quite simplistic, like launching Giggles with a slingshot to save the land in Stranded, an endless runner game where you play as evil Flippy in Aggravated Asphalt, jumping on woodpeckers as Nutty in Sugar High, and there's quite a lot more. There was also bigger games, like Dead Eye Derby and the False Alarm game. Sadly, many of the games have become unavailable due to Adobe Flash closing down, but a good amount of them have been saved with emulators. However, some like Slap Happy and the just mentioned False Alarm are just completely gone. A bit like the Crap Pet Show and Too Much Screen Time, there was some other episodes made to promote some games, that being Buns of Steel, which promotes Run and Bun, and Can Poke an Eye Out, that promotes Dead Eye Derby. Additionally, The two cutscenes from the False Alarm game were released together as a normal episode with the same name, False Alarm, which can probably confuse quite a few people. Lammy theme. Lammy and Mr. Pickles had very few episodes, but one of the things that we do know about Lammy is that she likes to sing, which can be heard in a bit of a pickle on Mondo's website, and in Royal Flush. If you watch the end credits, you can hear a variation of the main Happy Tree Friends theme, where Lammy is also singing. Allergies. In the TV series episode Party Animal, we find out that Flaky is allergic to peanuts, and possibly Flippy too, because he may have been allergic to deer meat instead. But it has been mentioned that Flippy is allergic to candy corn and chocolate. Plus, he's not much of a Halloween guy. Additionally, Lumpy and Giggles have sneezed to flowers. However, they are likely not allergic. Especially Giggles, who clearly loves them quite a bit. The voice actors. There have been many voice actors for the show, like Ken Navarro voicing Cuddles, Warren Graff voicing Toothy and Handy, Liz Stewart being Sniffles, and Peter Herman voicing Disco Bear. But there was multiple that had their voice actors changed. Giggles, Petunia and Cub were originally voiced by Dana Balbum. Then Ellen Connell started to replace her, like when she voiced Cub in What a Way to Go. And she especially voiced them for the TV series. But Laurie G did voice them for a little while after. Lumpy and Splendid was voiced by Rob Montague, but would be replaced with David Wynn. Russell was by Jeff Biancalana, then Francis Carr took over. And Ken Navarro replaced Mark Giambruno, who was the original voice for Lifty and Shifty. And Ken also replaced Aubrey Ankham as normal Flippy. Many voice clips from the old actors do end up still being used many years after they left. Most notably, evil Flippy clips from Aubrey Ankham. Flippy's past. In the episode Operation Tiger Bomb, we see Flippy as a private during the war, and one of his targets was the Tiger General. He had other commandos working with him, Sneaky the Chameleon and Mouse Kaboom. However, we don't ever get to see them using guns. Other things that's happened in his past can be pieced together by what we see in the normal episodes. Some things that he's been through include being captured, being in the middle of war zones, seeing Allied casualties, and hearing alarms. It's up for debate if Flippy has actually ever used a gun, due to him using a stapler like a gun. Ken Navarro has stated that the reason why we don't really see guns being used during the normal episodes is because of it being too easy. But Flippy can actually be seen with one in the 2012 new season teaser. However, it's clearly not an episode. But most interestingly, there's a drawing of him with a gun on the chalkboard in the episode Something Fishy. Alright then, time for a little theory. Maybe he has used guns, but the reason why we don't ever actually see him using one is because he's a close quarters specialist, and he's best at doing missions that are primarily about taking out important targets. After he deals with the Tiger soldiers at the end of Operation Tiger Bomb, I think it's likely that he got promoted to sergeant, and he had his hands reattached, or something similar. But you of course can't see the scars because, well, his fur is covering them.
You serious?
But due to him flipping out and killing anybody near him, which likely included his allies, he may have been forced to retire. Well, that's just my theory. If you guys have a different one, tell me what you think in the comments section below. Another thing is that Evil Flippy has never intentionally killed Cub. Maybe this is because, well, you know, he's a child. Or maybe he just simply doesn't see Cub as a threat. Double Whammy is a two-parter. Here's something that probably confused a lot of people. On YouTube, there is 4 parts of Double Whammy, but actually there's only 2. There is Double Whammy and Double Whammy Part 2, also known as Autopsy Turvy. But for when they was uploaded onto YouTube, the episodes were both split in half and uploaded as 4 parts. Non-humanoid animals. HTF of course has anthropomorphic characters, which means animals with human traits. But there are animals that aren't. Now, one of the strangest things is seeing animals for both, or similar species, like for Cuddles, Lammy, Truffles, Mime, Lumpy, and the main bear characters. I just assume that they are just simply different species, like us compared to monkeys and apes, but I guess a bit more extreme. Another strange thing is evidence of humans existing in the Happy Tree Friends world, due to many things looking out of place. Here's some examples. But probably the most interesting is a skeleton that could be seen in 2 episodes. Now, just listen to this. Some people have theorized that the humans did some kind of crazy experimentation and turned themselves into some freaky human-animal hybrids. Or maybe they just went extinct.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
But Kanavara confirmed that humans don't exist in the Happy Tree Friends world. So I guess that many fans are just thinking too much into it. Flaky knows about Evil Flippy in 1 episode. In the episode Without a Hitch, Flaky is driving at night and ends up seeing Flippy on the side of the road, signalling for a pickup. For the whole episode, Flaky keeps hallucinating about Flippy changing evil, but this never actually happens. So in this episode, Flaky knows what he could be like. Nutty tries to run from Evil Flippy in Double Whammy, so maybe he's also aware of Evil Flippy in this episode, or maybe it's just his scary face. Lifty and Shifty run for their lives in easy few to slay, after he flips and breaks out of his restraints. But honestly, I think anybody would react the same way. So Flaky is the only character who has been aware of Evil Flippy before anything bad happens. Nutty can lose his addiction. Nutty is, big surprise, addicted to candy and anything sweet, and he will often do almost anything to get any, like shoplifting, chasing Cuddles for his ice cream, and even taking a lolly from poor little Cub.
This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
But he can lose his addiction. We see this in the game an episode called False Alarm, where Sniffles puts him into a room. Then, over a long period of time, Nutty goes through sugar withdrawal, but eventually loses his addiction, and Sniffles allows him to leave. But Nutty ends up getting addicted to video games instead, and leads to his console packing up and trying to get a new one. However, he eventually finds a candy cane, and not surprisingly goes back to his normal self. Now, something extra that's pretty interesting about Nutty's eyes is that they can cause them to see things as candy, like ribbons on a kite and Christmas lights. Tier 4. Further into the blue. Handy's lack of empathy. Handy is shown to have a lack of empathy for the other characters when they die or get injured, like not caring about Nutty and Russell dying in Ipso Fatso, and Nutty again in the wrong side of the tracks. But in the very same episode, he also laughs at Cuddles after he loses his hands. Maybe this is because of him being simply jealous of the other characters having hands, which of course he doesn't have any. But he has shown to have concern for Petunia and Mole. Petunia can be explained by them sometimes being boyfriend and girlfriend, and for Mole they are close friends. Apart from the obvious evil Flippy, Handy is the most notable for his lack of empathy when the other characters get injured, but there are others that have had their moments, which includes Sniffles, Lumpy, Normal Flippy, Nutty and Lifty and Shifty. But for Lammy and Mr. Pickles is up for debate for which one it is. Flaky's gender. Now, for those who don't care about this topic, you can just skip to this time. Flaky is voiced by Nick Alorba, and the character was first introduced in the early 2000s. And early on in development of the franchise, one of the co-creators, Rob Montijo, designed Flaky as a boy. But the other co-creator, Ken Navarro, said that Montijo assumed that Flaky was a boy, and Ken thought of her as a girl. But he did eventually say that when asking a lot of the people who worked on the show what they thought, their answers were apparently split. Early on in the franchise, Flaky's gender was made to be a mystery, probably due to the disagreements at Mondo, which also created a debate amongst fans. A good amount of people say that Flaky's a boy due to the lack of eyelashes. Flaky entered the boys' restroom in Something Fishy, due to there being no blood and her not hearing Giggles and Petunia screaming. But though, in the blurred version of the episode, it's said that the reason why that she can't decide which restroom to go in is due to the signs not being very helpful. Plus, she may have entered the boys due to Giggles making her dizzy. But I'll be honest, I know that's a bit of a stretch. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I've always seen this as like a representation of the creators not deciding on her gender, while also keeping the mystery going. The voice of Nutty, Michael Littman, said that he thinks that Flaky is a metrosexual happy tree friend, which basically means a straight guy who acts like a stereotypical woman or a gay guy, like having a great interest in fashion, for example, and wearing clothing that looks more feminine than masculine. However, afterwards, he said that Flaky could go either way. Here's why most people see Flaky as a girl, including a few of my own points. Flaky's been referred to as a her or called a girl and female many times outside of the episodes themselves, like in the commentaries and on the website. Disco Bear seems to be interested in her twice, but seems to see her as second best to Giggles and Petunia. Also this. Flaky has a flower suitcase, but to be honest, you could say the same thing about Cuddle's slippers. The way that she slaps Nutty's hand really makes me think of how a mother would act when a child is about to touch something that they shouldn't. Panda Mom also has no eyelashes. And finally, she just sounds so feminine. Plus, the voice of Russell, Francis Carr, said that Flaky has got to be a girl. And even LiQWYD herself said that Flaky is definitely a girl.
Flaky is definitely a girl, as you can see.
However, later into the franchise, they kept the mystery going, which can be seen in the blurred versions of Without a Hitch and Ski Ya What I Wanna Be Ya. Ken Navarro would end up saying that Flaky's gender is what you want it to be. Now, for me, I see Flaky as a girl, because her voice just sounds so feminine to me, along with the already mentioned reasons why many people see her as a girl, and the fact that LiQWYD said so confidently about Flaky being a girl. But what I think doesn't really matter. No one is right or wrong. If you think that Flaky is a boy, don't let others force you into changing your mind. Because again, no one is right or wrong. Dinosaur Days and Intimate Spotlight. Despite Crow Marmot having a low amount of appearances for the main series, he does have 2 irregular episodes starring him. The most notable is Dinosaur Days, where the episode has a 1920s art style and takes place in prehistoric times, which is about Crow becoming hungry and accidentally biting a dino's tail, which leads to it attacking him. But after running away, he gets caught by a pterodactyl and fed to her babies. The other episode, Intimate Spotlight, is barely an episode. It's about a British woman interviewing Crow Marmot, and she lists some of his accomplishments.
In 1992, you were named Sexiest Happy Tree Friend, and you have your own line of foot powder.
However, she gets frustrated for not getting any response, and she tells the crew that they are all dead to her.
You, and you're all dead to me. Do you know who I am? And piss off.
Ski Patrol. Ski Patrol is a parody of mid-20th century educational and safety videos. It's all about Lumpy becoming a member, which involves operating a ski lift, keeping everyone safe, and helping them in a mountain. Lumpy learns that he needs to keep hazards away from the ski lift area, giving oxygen to those in need due to altitude sickness, helping an injured person with broken bones, then evacuating them, and offering lip balm for chapped lips. Flippy's kills. Something that probably comes to mind for a lot of people is how many kills has Flippy got. Now, because it doesn't make sense to count hallucinations, dream sequences, and that one time that he was in a TV, Flippy has caused 80 confirmed kills. But Lumpy has actually caused more, directly and partly responsible, yet most of them are unintentional. Awards. Happy Tree Friends have received some awards. 3 episodes got Best Animated Short Film Made for the Internet, for the episodes Eye Candy in 2003, Out on a Limb in 2004, and More in the City in 2005. Along with these 3 awards, they also got 2 awards for the Best Television Series for Adults, for the episodes From Here to Eternity and Double Whammy Part 2 in 2007. Pop culture references. Happy Tree Friends loves to parody and make reference to other media and pop culture. Some are more obvious, like The Shining, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Godzilla and Superman. But there are less obvious and obscure ones, like for Peanuts, Molten Salt, Optimus Prime, the Loch Ness Monster, and the movie called The Birds. Now, some people have asked me to talk about Happy Tree Friends in other media, but I haven't watched a lot of these pieces of media, so I can't really give any context. Thankfully, other fans have spotted a good amount. Here's some examples. But there is one that I can say about, and it's about this hat for the Primal Sunflower in Plants vs Zombies 2, which may have been inspired by the dinosaur version of Lumpy, though it may just be a coincidence that they look so similar. Funny looking frames. With almost any animated show, there are going to be frames, or still images, made to give smoother, exaggerated, or even bouncier animation. But some frames can look a bit interesting, or even cursed out of context. Here's a few examples.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
Mime can create solid objects. Mime is, well, a mime, and like what real mimes do, they pretend to interact with items that aren't actually there. But for Mime, a lot of what he's interacting with are actually real, and he seems to be able to create things out of thin air. Like we can see him using a flute to make two of his bandages move like a snake, putting a sealable pirate hat into an invisible bin, and pressing the horn in Concrete Solution, to mention a few. However, the most notable time is in Easy For You to Slay, where we can see and hear him interacting with multiple items, like a sink to wash his face, and putting a money bag into a safe. Got that rhymed a bit. Now, what I find to be quite interesting is in the Love Bite episode called I Heart You. Mime sees Petunia, then mimes a heart, then blows it and unfortunately harms Petunia. But that's not all. He then makes a bow along with an arrow and then shoots it at her too. He then looks at Petunia and his reaction seems to imply that he can create things by accident. Petunia sprays Disco Bear. In Blind Date, Petunia is in Disco Bear's car. After Disco Bear tries to kiss her, she immediately sprays him in the face. Many would assume that she used pepper spray, but I think that would be a bit out of character for her to do that. And just look what she's doing before it happens. Some may also say that she used a skunk spray, but the way that she's acting looks more like she needs to pee. And yes, skunk spray is its own thing. I think it would not be out of character for her to do that, especially when she's previously peed herself in Happy Trails. She's needing to go again in one of the menus of the First Blood DVD, and she also needs to go in the later episode called Wigging It. Collect them all cards. Now, I've previously said about Petunia's Collect 'em all card, and it's again from the First Blood DVD, along with many more for the other characters. But some of these fun facts are quite interesting. Some are clearly jokes, while the other ones come off as being serious. Here's a few highlights. Cuddles has a master's degree in karate. Lumpy talks to Lettuce, which is probably not that much of a surprise for a lot of people. Splendid is afraid of heights, unless he overcomes his fears. And Nutty has rabies, which I actually think is maybe possible. Now, hear me out. He may have actually had rabies in his first episode, due to him foaming at the mouth at one point, and even when he's on the bed in False Alarm. And he's also foaming at the mouth in this promotional art.
You know, you know what I mean? Like...
Apart from in a game, Crow Marmot's ice cube never completely melts, even on a hot day like in the episode Wipeout. And even when it's boiling in Swelter Skelter. Crow also has freezing superpowers, which he can make a room turn to freezing, like when he was kidnapped. And he can even freeze an ocean. Splendid is chewing on an acorn in his first episode. However, he clearly loves them. His own logo is an acorn, his home is shaped like one, and he even works for a newspaper company with an acorn for their logo too. The characters can be seen singing the main theme. In Happy Trails Part 1, From A to Zoo, Take a Hike, and in this video that I'm going to say about later. You would think that because Cuddles is the face of the franchise, you would think that he would be the most common character, but he's actually in third place. Giggles is second, and Lumpy is in first. Splendid had a rival in an irregular episode called Mirror Mirror, where Splendon't shows to be a better hero. Splendon't wants nothing to do with Splendid, and leads to them fighting after noticing some of the characters needing help to extinguish a fire. And by the end of the episode, Splendon't ends up defeating Splendid. Briefly, in the background of What a Way to Go, you can see a silhouette of Cuddles, and possibly Toothy too. Petunia can be seen with a cup in her eye in Staying Alive. Cuddles can strangely be seen celebrating Easter during Christmas in Just Because. Petunia was confirmed that she survived in her first episode, despite her pretty severe injuries. And for the cover of the First Blood DVD, of course has Cuddles with a fork near an outlet. But this actually returns as a chalk drawing on Lumpy's chalkboard in Something Fishy. Tier 5. The Unknown Waters. Lammy's questionable innocence. Lammy comes off as a friendly sheep who enjoys to socialise, along with her best friend Mr. Pickles. But Mr. Pickles is not as friendly as Lammy, and you can see him attacking the other characters. Many would say that Lammy is innocent. However, there is evidence that she is not as innocent as she makes out. None of the characters can see Mr. Pickles as alive, like Petunia not believing that Mr. Pickles ripped her teddy apart. Flaky sees Lammy choking Petunia without seeing Mr. Pickles doing it, and Giggles also sees him as simply just a pickle on the table. Also, when Lammy is in jail, she receives a tray of food, which includes a pickle. Despite it clearly being a different one, she also sees it as Mr. Pickles. Pop in Happy Trails Part 2. In Happy Trails Part 2, the bus from Part 1 has crashed onto an island, causing multiple casualties, and we see Flippy burying the dead. Giggles passes away to a jellyfish and he buries her too. Later on, along with Lumpy, Sniffles and Handy, they turn on Flaky after she pops their boat, which also caused Lifty and Shifty to be attacked by sharks. Then Flippy is seen burying her as well. Originally it was Pop instead of Flippy, but was switched to Flippy because those at Mondo thought that it would be a bit too weird for Pop to be doing the burying. Also, if Pop was in it, I'd think Cub would need to be in the episode somewhere. Truffle's Video Bomb Competition. In 2013 was an event where contestants were able to enter a fan character, and fans would be able to vote for which one would end up in an episode, similar to Vote or Die. The winners ended up being Really Good Unicornius and Trixie the Ferret, and they both appeared in Pet Peeve. Fun fact, Truffles is officially a professional video bomber. There was a second event simply called Truffles Video Bomb Halloween Competition, and the winner ended up being Rudy the Goat, which appears in the vicious cycle. Lumpy wears blue clothes. Here's something that is pretty weird. In the early episodes of HTF, we find out that Lumpy wears clothing that is the same shade of blue as his head and lower body. His clothing looks just like a shirt, but it seems to be more than that, because it covers his exposed lower body. His clothing has pockets, but what is strange is that the other characters seem to have them too, despite it not being implied at any point that they are wearing clothing that is the same colour as the rest of their bodies.
Yes, well, actually...
Well, he's an exception. Shit. Yeah, don't think too much about it. But anthropomorphic cartoon characters with pockets isn't anything new, so you're clearly not supposed to think too much about it. Mime's tail. In Mime's first episode, Mime Mime Again, we can see that it has a tail, and after that, most of the time, he is always seen with one. But for the TV series, he is never seen with one, which I assume it happened due to it strangely being absent from his turnaround art. Some people have also wondered why Giggles doesn't have a tail, but Ken Navarro has confirmed that she does. It's just really short and we can't see it.
Liar!
I don't know if he's messing with us or he's being completely serious. I don't know. Lumpy sometimes knows about Mo being blind. Mo is blind, and the running joke with his character is him doing activities that require sight, similar to Handy and his lack of lower arms, along with him sometimes shown to have some hearing difficulties. The other characters often trust him with tasks, while also not noticing his blindness. But surprisingly, Lumpy out of all characters has noticed a good amount of times. Giggles may also know about his blindness in Cold Hearted, but she may have simply hooked up with him for the sake of comedy. I think it's quite possible that he doesn't know that he's blind, and does not understand what it means, which would explain why he tries to live like everyone else, even if some of the things that he does offer him no benefit, like reading, turning off the lights, and using a mirror. Despite Mo's vision being shown in Visionorama, in some episodes he is shown to be able to see, but this was clearly done for the sake of comedy. However, he does seem to able to at least see the difference between light and dark. Shifty was first. This concept art for Cuddles was the one that started the ball rolling for the creation of the show. Many think that Cuddles was the first character created that ended up in the show, but that's actually not true. Before Cuddles was the creation of Shifty, and he seems to be a squirrel with hidden goods, and he would eventually be turned into a raccoon. Shifty originally didn't have a name, and he was supposed to be just some shady character, but he was turned into a kleptomaniac, which means somebody who has trouble resisting the urge to steal. Generic tree friends. In the bus that we can see in Happy Trails, we can see silhouettes of some of the characters. Later, we can see that these two are Toothy and Giggles. These two seem to represent Mime and Sniffles, and these three must represent Handy, Mole and Flaky. Or possibly Flippy, Lifty and Shifty, but I think that's a lot less likely. There are many other instances of silhouettes, and they can be seen representing different characters. However, many can't be any of the main characters. These generic tree friends can clearly be seen in some episodes, and they are, not surprisingly, just exist to fill in the scenes, and to speed up the animation process of each episode. But if you look at these silhouettes in Mom to 5, after you pay attention to them, it's hard not to notice that it's just a whole bunch of copies of Sniffles and Mole. Mole was going to be a secret agent. Mole was originally going to be a secret agent, a bit like James Bond or a character out of Mission Impossible, and he would be using gadgets and rocket launchers. But this never happened. For the main series, Mole got a whole episode where this idea was explored in an irregular episode called Mole in the City. Mole shows to be a skilled fighter, despite him not realising that he's facing the wrong direction, and he has an antagonist simply known as the Rat. Mole can be seen using a camera, carrying a briefcase, a cane that is also a grappling hook, and explosive moles. Comics. Happy Tree Friends has had some single-page comics, and they contain no speech bubbles as you would expect from HTF. These just seem to be ideas that did not end up in any episodes. However, some or similar situations were put into later episodes, especially the TV series. Also, 2 were inspiration for 2 of the Minifigure World Series figures. Technically 3 figures if you count the 3-colour. Lumpy sees the whole world upside down, which you can see in Visionorama, and it's also been hinted a good amount of times. In Once Upon a Time, Giggles of course has a tatty bow, and a cool little detail is that she also has it for her pop-up for the episode. A bonus feature inspired by the See and Say toy, called See and Scream, can be found in the Third Strike DVD. I think it's safe to assume that Cro-Marmit's name comes from Cro-Magnum, which, by what I know about this, are the first modern humans that we know of. Panda Mom and her baby are only found in 2 of the 3 Buddhist Monkey episodes. One where we can see them in the library, and the other where they are poor and hungry. Lumpy is nearly always clean shaven, which is evidenced by the amount of times that we see him shaving, him having a mustache, or /and having a beard. Despite Handy being a beaver just like Toothy, he does not have any ears. However, the thing that's pretty strange is that he can be seen with some in Blind Date, and in some of the Claw Machine animations. In the episode Wrath of Khan, Cro-Marmit can be seen selling what I assume are fake cursed idols, or maybe they are real, but are simply not cursed. Mole has poorly carved jack-o'-lanterns in Out of Sight, Out of Mind. However, he's also seen with some in Can't Stop Coughing. And the cat in Tongue Twister Trouble actually has a name. Or shall I say 2. Honey and Mittens. Because the crew could not decide on which name to go with. Tier 6. The Far Depths. Changes in Flippin' Burgers. In this season 2 episode, Cuddles ends up getting ketchup onto Giggles. Then Flippy opens the door and he notices. Flippy then flips out, as you'd expect, attacks them along with the cook, and he blows up the restaurant. 2 major things were changed in the making of this episode. The more notable of the 2 is a deleted scene that would have come after Flippy attacks Giggles. Mole was originally going to be in this episode, and Flippy would have spotted him and grabbed the coat rack, then lifted Mole up with it, and it would have caused him to fall out of his skin. And the other change, which is not as notable, but I still think a lot of people would want to know about, that instead of Petunia being the cook, it was originally going to be Flaky. And I don't think it's ever been explained why Flaky was switched out with Petunia. Special popcorn video. The popcorn video is the first episode of season 1, but with speech bubbles. The bubbles contain things like comments about the episode, some facts, and even some jokes. These speech bubbles will end up in other episodes, much later down the line, and instead of them also being called special popcorn videos, they were simply called the blurbs. For Max. At the beginning of the episode, by the seat of your pants, is some text on the screen saying for Max, without any explanation of who Max is or what it means. By what I know about this, Ken Navarro has said that it was for a very special fan who wrote in, without any further context of who this is. Warren Graff later stated that they made an episode for a young and autistic fan, who wanted to see Flippy get what he deserves, which caused other fans to come to the conclusion that he was talking about by the seat of your pants. Also, at the beginning of the episode, where Scrooged, it says based on a true story, and I'm not sure exactly what this means. Maybe it means that the episode is inspired by human meat being sold or something? Or it kind of also makes me think of something that happened in the UK, and a particular supermarket selling us some products that aren't exactly what we think they are. If you know, you know. YouTube educational videos. 2 videos were made in partnership with YouTube. The first one, known as YouTube 101 Subscriptions, is about teaching people how subscriptions on YouTube works. It's about Cuddles being a fan or boyfriend of Giggles, I'm not sure which, and he subscribes to her YouTube channel. The video explains that her most recent videos and activity will be shown on your homepage. It also tells you that you can see your own subscribers and that you can unsubscribe from any channel at any time. Cuddles thinks that Giggles is spending time with Disco Bear, and it causes him to express his thoughts to his own subscribers. He then unsubscribes and he cries at his desk. However, it's revealed that Giggles wasn't even with Disco Bear, and that he had a cardboard cutout the whole time. The second, known as YouTube Copyright School, is disliked by a lot of people. It's about Russell wanting to record some copyrighted material, and then uploading it to his YouTube channel, without permission. Russell gets told about the do's and don'ts when making content, and what he can do if one of his videos gets taken down, along with the possible consequences if he actually caused copyright infringement. It's so disliked because many people accuse it of oversimplifying how copyright infringement and fair use works. Crow Marmot's a Mole's voice actor. Despite what a lot of people think, Mime does have voice lines, like for when he's choking and dying. In the credits of Read 'em and Weep, it's mentioned that Crow Marmot is voiced by D. McDonald. Then, in Can't Stop Coughing, he is also credited for voicing the Mole. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I don't remember either of them saying anything at any point in any episode. In fact, Crow Marmot is not even in Read 'em and Weep. So, if you can't work it out, it's clearly a joke. Especially when this is in the credits of Where's Scrooged. Disco Bear did not wish for girls. Disco Bear is known for being a good looker and a true ladies' man. But the girls often don't care and even get annoyed by his persistence. In As You Wish, Disco Bear finds a lamp. He rubs it, then a genie version of Lumpy pops out, and he wishes for a giant disco ball. Him asking for a disco ball isn't anything surprising. However, shouldn't he have asked for Giggles and Petunias to be attracted to him? Or even Flaky? Disco Bear has insecurities, like about his weight, and his hair looking bad. But he keeps a big ego no matter what. Maybe the reason why Disco Bear didn't wish for a girl's attention is because of his ego, he thinks that they are playing just hard to get, and that they will come to him in time. But when they're ready.
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
Nutty wears candy as clothing. Apart from in Nutty's first episode, he does not eat the candy that's on his body, even when he's starving with Giggles in Once Upon a Time. In the morning of the episode True Said a Mouthful, he has candy in a drawer next to his bed. Without eating any, he puts some on his head and puts the candy cane on his torso like he's putting on a tie. In False Alarm, Nutty ends up losing his addiction, and instead of him wearing his candy, he has a tie with a collar and what I assume is a wig. Then later on, he is wearing controllers and what is basically a Game Boy after he became addicted to video games. So Nutty clearly covers himself with what his biggest interest is, and he seems to be quite committed to a particular look. But, hear me out. This may sound kind of stupid at first, but once you think about it, it kind of explains a few things. Maybe the reason why he does not eat the candy that's on his body is because he sees the candy as clothing. Again, yeah, it does sound kind of stupid, but it kind of makes sense and explains a few things that I just mentioned. The names of Splendid's allies. At the end of the episode Mirror Mirror, Splendid is defeated by his rival Splendon't. Splendid presses a button on his device to call for his allies. They arrive almost immediately and use a giant crowbar, of all things, to try and get him out of the ground. These characters were supposed to appear in future episodes, but they were cancelled. Despite them not getting their own episodes, Ken Navarro has mentioned their names. And I think they're a bit odd. This one's called Wonder Wanda. This one's called Webster. This one's called Tick Talk. And this one's called Man-O-War. I don't know what these names are. God, they're weird. There is also concept art for two of the superheroes. Personally, Webster looks... I hate it. I don't want to be mean, but I don't like it. I'm sorry, it looks terrible. But for Wonder Wanda's concept art, I love it. In fact, I actually like it a lot more than her finalized design. During Season 2, Shifty ended up appearing with a shadow under his hat. However, when the TV series came out, it oddly became absent. I don't know if it was done just to speed up the animation process, or it might have just been a forgotten detail. In the late 2000s, Happy Tree Friends unfortunately got banned from airing in Russia, and many years later, further steps were taken in 2021. Happy Tree Friends had many different ads, like for DVDs, games and merch. But here's some of the standouts for me, like Lumpy having fun with a stick, the Cuddles costume being reused for Slap Happy, Giggles being slingshotted for Stranded, which I personally find to be really rememberable, and Lumpy growing a third arm. Yeah, this is a thing. Fat Cat Animation Studios did the animation for the TV series, along with some Season 2 episodes. But a Happy Tree Friends version of the mascot with the same name can briefly be seen in Take Your Seat. There's a character that's dressed as Rorschach from DC's Watchmen, which we can see him twice in Wrath of Khan. In Out of Sight, Out of Mind, something that can easily be missed is that Mole's home is haunted. And you can see that there's actually a whole bunch of ghosts around his property. For the episode This Is Your Knife, instead of Giggles being in the episode, it was originally going to be Petunia. There's actually a dog that can easily be missed in Remains to be Seen. A video called Epic Comments is a joke video about the show not being what it initially makes out to be. But, more interestingly, there's actually some different designs for some of the characters, like for Giggles, Cuddles, Flaky, Cub and Mole. And Flaky with some other friends are seen preparing a birthday party for Flippy in Party Animal, and they sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. However, they were supposed to sing the Happy Birthday song. Yeah, that one. But they had to change it due to it being copyrighted at the time. Tier 7. The Furthest Depths. Happy Tree Friends and Friends? In around the mid-2000s on the American G4 was some transitional animations and bumpers with the name Happy Tree Friends and Friends. And they were shot between episodes along with other shows. These animations were about the characters being in a theatre, where they are watching the shows, and them doing other related things like getting food and drinks. A lot of these animations would end up being reused for HTF Break. HTF Break included some new animation, or maybe just new unseen animation because of the way they look, along with the bumper animations from G4 and some others that were reused, like for Claw and the Two Carols. However, 2 of the bumpers from G4 didn't make it, and they were not upgraded to HD. One where Petunia gets a very serious case of brain freeze, and the other being Toothy sipping some soda and then falling in, which I covered in a video some years back. The HTF Break episodes would end up saying about the show being over, but would eventually promote a new episode coming out, which ended up being Cause for Concern. Mole's mole is fake.
That's right. You're a big fat phony!
Lifty and Shifty steal Handy the mole's car, and they drive away in Don't Yank My Chain. Lumpy as a state trooper quickly forces them to stop, so they come up with the idea of going through Handy the mole's luggage and using their clothing to disguise themselves, so that they match up with their driver licenses. But if you look at Lifty, you can see that it has a mole. Does this mean that Mole carries a fake mole? Or maybe it's just some ink from a pen, but there's nothing that implies the latter. I've already pointed out about Mole having explosive moles in Mole the City, so I think it's safe to assume that for the main series, Mole's mole is also fake.
You're a phony! Hey, this guy's a great big phony!
Lifty and Shifty might be poor. Lifty and Shifty are often seen driving a van. However, we rarely see their home. They do have an apartment in Swatter Scouter, but interestingly, in the blurb version, it said that they stole it. Now, not everything we see in the blurbs should be taken seriously, but this is likely true. We see the inside of their home in Meet Me for Lunch, and their fridge is empty, so they go and steal some meat. Maybe they steal not just because they're kleptomaniacs, but because they're poor. Which also explains why they are also starving and buns of steel. And that they sold their hair formulas and seem to have sold their van too to Disco Bear in Easy Comb Easy Go. Which they may have done that to get a new home. The music shop and the pet shop are possibly the only legal homes. But there is nothing that implies that. So their van may be the closest thing that they have to a home that they have the rights to. Other character design changes. Since the beginning and before the updated designs around the time of the TV series, was some other changes. I've already said about Giggles and Toothy in Spinfurnaria, the other look for 4 characters in Banjo Frenzy, and Shifty's early designs. But there's some more interesting changes that we can see in some concept art. Giggles at one point had a Loch Ness Monster looking rubber ring, and roller skates, which she was going to roll around like Tooty from Facts of Life. But we did end up seeing a bit of that later on in the franchise. And it's also believed by the crew that, due to the crutches, this is also an early version of Giggles. Russell was going to look like a simple fisherman, but was changed to a pirate with a beard. In Russell's first episode, his beard was changed to a stubble. And in Off the Hook, he loses his stubble, and we never see it again in the franchise after. Sniffles seems to have been a squirrel at one point, and Flippy was going to be injured. If you look closely at Nutty, he seems to have been a deer at one point with a cone-shaped hat, and notice that he also had a deer tail. Buddhist Monkey and Truffles had a few different designs. And here's some less notable changes. Some also had different names. Petunia, Disco Bear and Russell were simply called Skunk, Disco and Sea Otter. Flaky was called Corky, and Cub and Pop were called Fuzzy and Poppy. Cut characters. There was quite a lot of cut characters, but here's what I think are the more notable ones. Bunny Bumpkin was supposed to be some kind of hillbilly character, and that there were supposed to be 2 brothers that would drive around in rally cars, like we see in Dukes of Hazzard. Cookie the Sloth, who's a chef, would have a cooking show where the other characters would see him on the TV, and not surprisingly would take him way too long to make anything. Unlike a lot of the cut characters, he was a part of the final lineup, but he was cut due to the early episodes being too short. Here's the innocent looking meat face and a platypus maniac. And this bloody thing that we just don't talk about. But by far my favourite one is this one. She's a possum mom who will carry her kids on her body. But here's the best bit. She would have pulled the tails off her kids and then throw them like hand grenades. God. The fact that she looks so innocent and there being a dark side underneath that face just makes me love her. It's so over the top, I kinda love it. The TV series 40th episode. Kind of. In the TV series Volume 3 DVD, is a bonus feature called Previously On. It starts with Previously on Happy Tree Friends, followed by a compilation of the characters suffering. However, halfway through, we see the standard opening for a TV series episode, with the title Asbestos I Can Do, and it's starring Lumpy. All we get to see is Lumpy knitting something that looks like a sock, but I guess to keep his antler warm. And it ends with Next Time on Happy Tree Friends, and then carries on with the compilation. Due to the TV series intro being in the middle, some could make the argument that it's the unofficial 40th episode, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. Flippy might have had pet penguins. In Double Whammy Part 1, Lumpy attempts to hypnotise Flippy. He does end up dreaming about him having tea and cookies with 3 penguins at a table. Not much later, he ends up having the same dream again, but this time evil Flippy bursts out of one of the penguins with a knife. Now, as we all know, our dreams are often very random, but maybe the penguins might have been his pets at one point, and something might have caused him to flip out and attack one of them, which is represented by what we see in his second dream. Plus, we also see a missing pet poster with a penguin on it in Junk in the Trunk. But I'm probably thinking too much about it. In 2013 was another poll called Best Happy Tree Friends Character Tournament, where fans would vote for their favourite characters within each round. And it's probably not that much of a surprise for a lot of people that Flippy ended up winning the final round. Giggles is an environmentalist in Every Little Bit Hurts. However, apart from Mime using a unicycle, Cub being too young, unless you count this, and Splendid being able to fly, Giggles is the only main character who has never driven. We see Sniffle's eyes being just like Cub's in Tongue Twister Trouble. However, in A Sight for Sore Eyes, he has standard looking eyes. There's a Japanese website, but it doesn't seem to get any more updates. Lammy was supposed to appear in Season 5, in Going Out With a Bang, where after a firework passes by her, her head would have exploded. Additionally, Flaky was originally going to be split in half, instead of being flattened. On Toothy's turnaround art, it mentions that his freckles are for the ladies. A bonus feature for the Winter Break DVD, called Happy Tree V, included some fantastic extra content, like Yule Log, pretty colours, and finally, the best one, Snow Days.
That's it?
For the pilot Banjo Frenzy, at one point the dinosaur was going to be a bear. Giggles has seen Lumpy's moose knuckle a lot. For a brief moment, you could see a tiny copy of the snowman's hat in From Hero to Eternity. And for the Seg figures, there is a 6-pack of small figures along with some larger posable figures. However, a larger Lifty, Toothy, Handy and Lumpy were supposed to come out, but they were cancelled. And there was apparently going to be a Sniffles and Disco Bear too, but I have not seen confirmation that these were actually for figures, and not just some normal concept art. In this image of some prototype minifigure world figures, This Cuddles and this Flippy never got released. And additionally, here's some unreleased prototype plushes. And the final tier, Tier 8, the bottom of the drain. Behind the scenes voice clip for Handy and Pop. In the Third Strike DVD, you can see Warren Graff making some drowning sounds for Handy that were to be used in the Season 2 episode Charlotte Work. But there is also a clip for Aubrey Anquin voicing Pop for the episode What a Way to Go. Because of his clips being much more easy to recognise, here's some of his recordings that I've matched up with the episode. Mad magazines. 2 German Mad magazines were made with Happy Tree Friends included. One partnered with SpongeBob and the other being South Park. They include some of the comics, but a lot of the other imagery are quite interesting. For anyone who's ever wondered what if HTF and SpongeBob were somehow in the same universe and wanted each other dead, this is what it could look like. And you can also find Lumpy attacking Mickey Mouse and his friends. And there are some other things that are very, very weird. And this one image kind of sums up Happy Tree Friends. Hey Ash, what you playing? On Mondo's YouTube channel itself and the website is a video from HAWP Official, which in the video we can see Ash playing the false alarm game and wants to become a game reviewer. She, dressed as Cuddles, starts reviewing different games. Then Davis, dressed as Nutty, will proceed to hurt Anthony and leads to the pain and suffering that she inflicts getting worse and worse. You can still find it, but be prepared. It's pretty strange. 3D Giggles. There is a 3D animation of Giggles that again can be found in the Third Strike DVD. The question is, why was this made? And why is it called a little animation test? Unless it means that they plan to make a 3D animated episode or something similar at one point. Because why would they call it a test if it's simply just some kind of passion project? But I assume that it possibly got cancelled due to it costing too much to make, and that fans may not be interested. However, we did get a different kind of a 3D animated episode, that being Cub John Z, but it's not really the same thing, is it? Operation Tiger Bomb design changes. This Art of Evil Flippy caused the idea of setting an episode in his past, which led to the creation of Operation Tiger Bomb. They wanted the episode to have a unique look, so these early concepts of Flippy got created. And for Evil Flippy, they give him sharper corners, so that they can make him look more maniacal and crazy. Here's some other designs for the Tiger General and his soldiers, which their designs were changed to the ones that we know today, due to them originally looking too futuristic. And for all of their designs, they decided to add more contrast for their colours. 2 animated deleted scenes. In 2024, with 2 leaked animated deleted scenes for 2 episodes from Season 1. For Chip Off the Old Block, Pop was supposed to have noticed that he caused Cub's demise, which would have caused him to try and burn the evidence. But the crew thought that it was too morbid, so they changed it to him not noticing and accidentally setting Cub's body alight. And because of a leak that happened in 2024, we can now see that they actually did some animation for this ending. And for the other episode, Hide and Seek, Cuddles would have appeared in the episode. And evil Flippy would have pumped his head up and his head would have exploded. But it was apparently cut due to the other kills being more preferred. It's shocking that over 24 years later, that these have now become available to the public. Giant toothbrush. Here's something that's really obscure. In All Flocked Up, when Lumpy the Bat get up the tree by using a chair with balloons, to the left side is a giant toothbrush. Plus, even stranger is that Lumpy can be seen holding it in one of the sneak peek images for the episode. So, here's what I think happened. There might have been a deleted scene that led to him using the chair and balloons, where he would have looked around for anything to help him get up the tree. And the toothbrush may have simply been one of the things that he found. But it may just be some kind of inside joke. And Warren Graff apparently said that he did not remember the toothbrush being in the script, in response to the sneak peek images. However, a similar thing also apparently happened for a bit of a pickle, where Lammy is also holding a toothbrush, and that's why we have this image. Here's a very early version of Flippy. On the left, his design looks a lot more extreme compared to what we ended up getting. But for his good side on the right, it really makes me think of Sandy from SpongeBob SquarePants. Here's some early sketches of Sneaky and Mouse Kaboom. For the first 2 TV series DVDs, you can find footage of a plush Cuddles being split apart by what looks like a buzzsaw, Giggles being ran over, and Lumpy being cooked in a barbecue. Here's a character dressed as a bunny that's skipping through flowers and accidentally falls off a cliff. And the reason why I mention this is because the idea ends up being used for Giggles in Better Off Bread. A video called Truffle Style was at one point available on Mondo's website, and is Truffles dancing to Gangnam Style while in an elevator, with Mr. Pickles walking along while also wearing glasses. And Truffles dancing would also end up returning in Hot Tub Shake. I think it's safe to assume that the video got taken down due to copyright issues. In this image of Flippy, we can see that he does indeed have a belly marking. Mole's mouth looks like this. At the beginning of Once Upon a Time, Giggles was going to wear something that's either a headscarf or a hood. For the G4 airing of Hello Dolly, it says about the episode introducing a joke character called Rocky, but it's actually not even in the episode itself. There was a deleted video that's a joke advertisement for Disco Bears It All, which I believe is a show or something similar. That is to help with your romance problems. And it also promotes vinyls and cassettes, along with some free gifts. By what I know about this, I don't think it's ever been confirmed why it was deleted. Truffles was going to be a little brat, and he would have always been trying to one-up. And finally, here's the last thing on my iceberg. During development of Out of Sight, Out of Mind, Handy seems to have also appeared as a trick-or-treater. But more interestingly at the end, after Mole turns Mime's head into a jack-o'-lantern, he would have put his head onto a table, and Petunia, dressed as an angel, would have turned up, and she would have freaked out after she looked at Mole's new jack-o'-lantern. Thank you so much for watching my whole video. It definitely didn't take me about 2 years to make, but I'm so pleased that it's finally done. If you could please just leave me a like, I would really appreciate that.